All right. Hello and welcome to Backstage with Gig Performer. My name is Brett Pontecorvo. If you've been with us week after week, you'll know we're here every Thursday, 1 p.m., talking about how to use Gig Performer, how to get the most of it, kind of talking about some mindset stuff. And if you've been with us, you will know that we are going through the genre series. We've got a ton of special guests coming up. If you guys were here last week for Bruce Moore's amazing MIDI guitar demonstration, let us know that in the comments. If you got a lot of value out of this video, last week's video, week after week, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. But this week we are talking about worship music. So this is like a whole different thing. And originally we had kind of chatted about potentially doing this, and David Jameson, one of our co-founders here at Gig Performer, was kind of like, well, why don't we do a larger one? Why don't we just say, hey, let's cover all of the different genres? Why don't we make sure that we're covering rock and roll and covering cover bands? We had Bruce Moore come on last week. We also have coming up Igor Paspalj. We've got so many awesome people coming in. So definitely you'll want to tune in. David is messaging me. David did say that. David, you're the inspiration for this whole series. And you didn't even know it. But let's kind of talk a little bit about, maybe the difference between playing worship music and some other styles, and kind of how that ends up working out just in terms of application, right? So in a lot of different genres of music, right, every song has a really different feeling. And this can differ a lot. Like if you're, depending on what type of a church you're playing at, right, you're going to have a different genre. There are even sub-genres within worship music. But the idea is, most of the time, we don't really want people to sense a huge shift, right? Because worship music is sort of applied music. It's like music that is meant for people to interact with. So it has to be interactable. We don't want to create something that's, too out there for people to really dive into. So we have this unique challenge as people who are playing church music or playing worship music, whatever it is that you're kind of doing, to try and make sure that everything has a really nice, solid base underneath it. And for years, I was using Ableton to do this. And when I started using Gig Performer, the wheels in my head started to turn a little bit, because Gig Performer does patches better than Ableton does patches. I believe this is just a fact. It's designed to do that really well, but it also has the global rack space, which means it can do sort of an overarching an overarching sort of layer of sounds that always exist. And for worship music, this actually makes a ton of sense. So let me open up my Gig Performer set here, and I'll just kind of show you through it a little bit, and we can talk about it, and we'll go from there. So I actually want to start with showing the global rack space, because this is kind of the meat and bones of what is going on for my live performance setup. So on the left here, you'll see I've got a piano sound, and on the right here, I've got a pad sound. And I'm using the Novation Launch Control XL to control these things. Nothing super crazy here. So if we just start with the piano, got an on-off button. Okay, and all that's doing is turning my piano sound on and off. Got the same thing happening for my pad sound, and I have the ability to turn that on and off. Now, like I kind of mentioned before, when you are playing worship music, you might not actually want people to notice when things are switching. And so what I've done here in the background is, rather than having a setup where I am bypassing plugins when I turn things on and off, what I'm actually doing is I am using a MIDI filter. And this MIDI filter is blocking my note on messages, but not my note off messages. So let's see here. When I'm playing, let's see. I've got another sound coming through. Okay. So when I have this engaged here, my piano sounds are coming through. And when I hit this off button, you'll notice the piano sound continues until I let go of the pedal, and then everything stops. And the reason that I do this way is, again, because I don't want any crazy cutoffs happening, right? Now, inside Gig Performer, which we're going to talk about this a little bit when we switch over to the local rack spaces, they have a MIDI patch persist function, which works really well, especially for when you are like needing to switch parts really quickly. But in this particular case, these two sounds, this piano and this pad sound, these are like my primary layers. So it's very rare that I'm going to need these to stop and switch quickly. Sometimes I'm going to pull my piano out because I'm going to have something replace it, which you'll see in a second here. And in that case, I want to be able to keep playing and have that tail still sit there, which is kind of why I opted for the MIDI filter option instead. And I was mentioning to you that like this sound is kind of the base of it. And the reason that I can get away with this is because I can kind of create like a whole host of different sounds using the effects that are in here. So before I even bring on the pad, I should make sure my bass is not actually on here so we can see this here. Okay. Well, do this. Okay. So I can kind of pull the top end off here, which is going to give me a slightly different sound. But if I add a touch of my verb back in, what I've already been able to do is kind of create something that's a bit ambient. Right? So this can work really well for walk-in music or walk-out music, or being able to just kind of create something that's a little bit less, hey, here's a giant pad, but still has enough of support underneath it to really like be music still. So I'll pull this off and we get, looks like we've lost all of my piano. Let's see here. What's going on? The beauty of when you're live is that things happen. Let's see here. Well, let's see here. Not sure where all my sound went, friends. It's a thing that happens. All right. Well, in the meantime, I will keep talking through the rest of what's going on here. So on the other side, we've got a pad sound. And the function of this pad is to kind of have a layer underneath your piano. And I've got the same three types of controls over the top of this. I've got my filter, which changes the sound to be quite different depending on where this is setting. And this is just high pass, low pass filter. I've got some reverb, which creates a pretty different texture as well. And then I've got this drive happening here. Okay. So let me switch this sign. Somebody just popped in and said, your cutoff is at 0. Let's see if that does it. Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so we've got this ability here to switch these pads on and off. And this gives you a pretty decent texture that's going to actually get you through most of what's going on. And if you need to build, you have the ability to open this filter up. You have the ability to turn your reverb down. Okay, so these are the sounds, right? This is sort of the base layer. These are the things that don't ever change, that are always happening. Then you'll notice down here, I've got these two buttons that are set up, and these go to turn my metronome on and off. So a lot of times I will enter particular parts of a service where the clock will stop. So I need a way to turn my clock on and off. And I just have a button mapped on my Novation launch control that turns that metronome on and off. Very, very simple. Then I've got these previous and next, and then I've got previous song and next song. And this is done using the System Actions plugin in the back. So just have two of those here, and we will look at those in a bit. So when we pop back over to the local side, I have just a few patches. And the reason for this is most of the time, I am able to make way, right, with everybody else who's playing through the majority of the songs that I need to play without actually using that many patches. Like this is what I open up on a Sunday when I'm playing. So let me show you some of the things that are happening here. Occasionally we're without bass player. And when we are without a bass player, I have this sort of bass patch, which just is a very simple bass patch. And I think I changed this when I was trying to figure out all of what was going on before. But essentially what this does is I've got a MIDI split here, not a split, but a range set. So I've got a minimum and maximum range. And on the bass patch, it's set to automatically pull out the piano on the lower end and let the bass come through. But when I go to another sound, I have this global rack space too, so that my piano sound will come back in the other range when I don't need it. Because even sometimes if you are covering left-hand bass, you don't necessarily want to have the bass going the whole time, right? A bass player is maybe not going to start a song or maybe not going to finish a song. So having the ability to bring the bass in and out easily is really nice. And you could do this very quickly with your global rack space and just kind of having the duplicate widgets up at the top. So when you bring the bass in, you see the global widgets here, and that pulls it out on the low end. And then if I switch back to ePiano, I've got the full range of my keyboard. But something that I don't know if you caught here is that when I am playing this ePiano, the volume is actually still controlled by the same knob, the same fader on my end here. And this is done very intentionally because, again, we don't want to have a huge jump in levels when we're playing. We want everything to kind of be the same. And you can do this by making all of your sounds the same volume. And there definitely is some of that. But because we work a little bit more with textures, it's a little bit easier and it's a little bit more foolproof to not have something that comes out of a chain without being caught. So if we flip over to the back here, basically all I have going on is MIDI in to an ePiano going to the global rack space. And when I flip to the global rack space, you'll see that channels 1 and 2 here are coming right into the reverb of my piano patch. And that's because these are sort of going to perform similar functions. So when I'm playing piano or I'm playing electric piano, like those are the main instruments, right? So if I am in my local rack space and I move over to ePiano, right now I have both sounds, but if I turn my piano off, now I just have ePiano. Or I could have both if I wanted. And this makes it, again, so that I don't get anything super jarring. So I guess to give a better example of this, if I'm playing and I have my piano really verbed out. So I don't know. Let's say we're waiting for something to happen. And I'm playing something with piano that's really kind of just ambient. if I switch to e-piano and I got the full e-piano sound coming out of that volume in that moment, and we all of a sudden ended up with this. Let's see here. Everybody would stop and look up. So having this run all through the same effects chain is really helpful, and just not even making that a possibility to happen. So what I have going on in the back, which I kind of started to show you here, is this from Rackspace. So what's going on is channels 1 and 2, these are my keys sounds. And those are always going to run through my keys effects channel, which I'm using. Reason for this, just using one of their built-in reverbs here. And then serum effects, I feel like it doesn't really get talked about enough, especially in like worship music. This is a fantastic device to use for this type of a thing. So I have everything in here that I need, right? And I prefer the reverb of Reason, which is kind of why I end up going there. But in here, I've got my filter, I've got a little bit of distortion, a tiny bit of EQ just so the bottom doesn't get so muddy, and a bit of compression. And then just a gain and balance going straight out. So channels 2 and 3, I have going to my pads, which are the same, and then lead and other, which I can show you here in the local rack spaces. So every once in a while, or I guess relatively often, but you need to have the ability to play certain lead sounds, right? And that's sort of where Gig Performer really starts to shine. So this is a patch that I have that's pad lead bass. And basically the way I use this is I have these sticky notes. So as soon as I start a song, I have a pad that comes in. And in the back, I have this MIDI in pad, which is blocking all note on and off messages. So I don't actually want to play this pad. I just want the sticky notes to turn this pad on. So it's never going to change, right? And in this case, I guess we were playing an A this week when I did this. So I have this pad sound that starts immediately when I load the next song, which I'll show you my set list view here in a moment. And that pad, by the way, is still controlled down here, or it seems like it's actually not. Interesting. So pad is running the second I start it, right? Then we've got bass happening at the bottom. And lead happening on top. So the pad is controlled there. I was touching the wrong thing on my MIDI controller. So all pads, all the same, right? And if I want to affect that pad and have it be bigger, I have the ability to do that because everything's running through the same effects channel, which is really nice. Right? So that's just like a pretty common intro that we do. And one of the things that's really helpful about having a setup like this is my hands are kind of all accounted for, right? I've got bass happening at the bottom end. I've got leads happening at the top end. And so having a pad in the mid-range just being triggered for me automatically is really useful, because I don't then have to worry about if enough space is going to be used. And if I'm not playing with an electric guitar player, the mid-range is covered. There's an acoustic going that's kind of covering all of the rhythm. And then I have the ability to just play this part. And again, the bass is automatically pulling things out with the minimum and maximum note values. I've got an e-piano. And then sometimes if I just want the pad to start, I have a rack space that's just that. It's just the pad. Okay, so before I jump into setlist view, does anybody have any questions? I know we have some worship people I've seen in the comments here. We got Jeremy Wong, who's here. We actually chatted online recently. He's playing music out in California for a church. Let's see here. If you have any questions about the setup or any questions about kind of what's going on, or if you have things, let's see here. With several panels like what you have, how do you manage it on the hardware controller side? How do you remember what buttons? Yeah. Okay. So it's a good question. It's a good question. So I'm going to just unplug this and hope that that doesn't do anything on the other end. So this is the controller that I use. And I have, you can see a lot of labels happening here. But I kind of try and do it in such a way that it's not a ton of work to think of. So over here, I have channels 1 and 2. And actually, all of these things are kind of from an old setup that I used to use. So on channels 1 and 2, these are my on-off buttons for my piano and for my pads. And these are my volume buttons. So I'll use these to adjust the volumes. And then just like you saw in the actual rack space, right? I have filter, verb, and drive. So I kind of always know like filter, verb, drive, filter, verb, drive. And then I don't really have to think so much, right? Like it really becomes a part of your instrument. Like the controller itself is actually really important. I don't look a ton at the screen. I use the setlist view to control the metronome, so I'll like kind of scroll through songs. But really, the thing that is the most important about this setup is this device here. So yeah, so I use that, and I guess the way I kind of like to think about it is any row needs to be the same. So like anything that I put on this bottom is going to be reverb, or is going to be filter rather. Anything that I put in this row is going to be reverb. So I guess I'm thinking about it a little bit like a mixer. And then if I have anything like funky, you can see I've got the 2D and 3D over here. And this is or on this side. This is from an old setup, but I used to have a triplet delay and an eighth note delay that would be done from up here. And so, yeah. So I guess, Patrick, I don't know if that fully answers your question, but I think the heart of it is, design something that you can't use wrong. And you know what else is also probably good to talk about? I always start at the beginning when everything gets set up by just moving all of my faders to make sure that the launch control and the software are doing the same thing at the same time. So yeah, it's pretty standard. David wrote in practice. Yeah, it is. With a lot of things, practice is everything, right? Just the more repetitions or whatever can be the thing. Okay, if anybody else has any questions, feel free to send them in. But in the meantime, let me kind of show you what's going on here in the set list view. So this is a set from a few weeks ago, from 9/19. We did 7 songs, and it was pretty simple set. But what's interesting about this is I've never been much of a set list person, but using set list view makes it really easy for me to do the clicks. So this is Amazing Grace. This is the tune that I was playing a little bit earlier. So I think I turned these off at some point. So we would start service, right? And as soon as I queued up This is Amazing Grace, I would have this pad coming in. And when I wanted the click to start, I would just hit the button on my controller that I have mapped. And we would be in. We'd be good to go. And this actually got switched somehow, but this would be pad lead bass is what I would use for this. So again, the click would start, and then you'd come right in with your thing. And we'd kind of be off to the races there. So what I've done is inside This is Amazing Grace, I've just made sure to enter in the tempo that I want and to check this override global tempo button. So that means that as soon as I start the song, the click is in the right place. And it's important too, if you're using any like timed effects, to either turn on Ableton Link or make sure that it's matched. If you have somebody on your team who's running tracks, you definitely want to make sure this is at the same tempo. Okay. So let's see what else I got going on in here. So, okay. Oh, we've got something coming in from Corel here. Regarding pads, I use the audio player to play MP3 drone pads. Yeah, this is a really easy way to go about doing it. If you're kind of trying to find a way to run drone pads, audio player is a great way. The reason that I haven't done that is because I want to be able to really easily change the pad. Like if I want to just switch it out and have something different, I can do that, and I can change the keys. I know a lot of the drone pads as well come in all of the keys, so you can just turn thing on or turn it off. But yeah, so that's absolutely a very easy way for you to do that. If you're running drone pads in Ableton already, you can load the same pads in to Audio File Player and trigger them that way. Okay, so I think we've kind of covered most of what happens here. Metronome, play, stop. Yeah, I think this is most of what goes on. But here, let's do one more tune. Yeah, okay. This is actually worth talking about. So, in this tune here, there's a very similar thing happening in the bridge and in the beginning of Amazing Grace. So I actually will use the same patch for this that I used in the intro that I played for you before. And the reason you can do that is because all of the sounds kind of are the same. So we want to have control over them, right? Using the whole thing in the global rack space. But then we can just kind of alter them a little bit and we have a different song. So this can be really helpful. So here, let's jump into this. So, so in this tune, in the bridge, we have this goes. So same sound, same set of patches, and all of that kind of just works together. Question coming in here: does the player loop the drones, or are they just the song length? Yeah, either of those things will work for you. So if you have drones and you load them into the audio file player, you can turn the looper on, or you can just trigger a synth, whatever works for you. If you have a synth sound that you like, it's my preference to have it trigger the synth because I think you just get a little bit more control over it. Yeah, so that would be my go-to on that. Okay, so this is kind of it, guys. This is the set. This is what I use every Sunday. Does anybody have any questions about anything else that's going on here? We'll leave it open, and if not, that's totally cool. We'll wrap up at about this time this week. But yeah, feel free to pop them in. I'll give us a couple of seconds here. Okay, how is the piano processed? I can show you that. So I feel like with piano sounds, especially in worship, you want them to be pretty compressed. Most of the time, you're not playing something that's like, you need the detail of the piano sound. So I like to use a decent amount of compression. So I use the pulverizer. This is I guess it's a compressor and distortion. Let me pull out the reverb. So yeah, so that is what it is. So this is running through the pulverizer here, and there are a lot of good presets for this. I have this very lightly on, but or actually it actually is bypassed right now. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I have this usually rocking, I guess, or maybe it's been off this whole time. But it makes a big difference actually when you listen to it, right? So here's the sound, no pulverizer. And here is it with the pulverizer. So it just kind of brings everything up to the front, which I think makes a nice difference. Then I've got the reverb happening here. And this is actually just the same patch, just with the other one enabled. And I've got this widget mapped to the dry wet. And I think it's worth mentioning, with worship music, I always will run it through reverb with the dry wet on it. Whereas if I was playing basically any other style of music, I would do this more as a send return. And the reason for that is there are times when I actually want this sound to be completely verbed out. Let's see here. That's like a texture that I may want to have access to. So yeah, so I keep it kind of in the order there. So that's the reverb. And this is, I changed this a little bit, but this is just all plate spread. This is a built-in Reason device. Then I've got this Serum FX. So this is where my filter is. This is where my distortion is. And it's not so much that like it's going to overpower the actual piano sound, but every once in a while you need a little bit more happening. So I've got some distortion there. Then I've got an EQ just to pull the low end out, because usually I don't need to be covering that register most of the time. I've got this compressor going on down here, and this is, it's hitting it pretty hard. But again, that's part of the vibe, I think, of the worship sound. And then I just have a gain and balance. So that's how the piano is processed. The pads are processed much the same way. Okay. You are using buttons for starting your pad, I assume by turning on certain notes. Can you transpose easily like that? I think David may have already answered this question. But let me show you, just in case somebody wants to set this up. This is not super difficult. So when you can have a button here, you can move it in, and you can, let's say, MIDI in. And if you type a note name in here, I don't know, let's see, C3, you'll see, was maybe a bad one. Here it is, C3 note on 60. So if I assign that to here, that's going to send that note into the whatever MIDI in block you have that linked to. So, you know, changing them too, like not super labor intensive. But that's how that gets set up. I feel like I had another thought on that, but maybe I didn't. Oh, this is nice thing to know. So you can control with a widget the velocity as well. So if for some reason you want them to hit a little bit harder, you can set that up, which I guess you don't hear as much with a pad sound. But if you were triggering something else and you wanted to be able to control the velocity, you have the ability to do that again right through the MIDI in block. Okay. Could you explain a little more of how you use the filter note on off so the sound transitions are smooth? Do you use it with patch persist or in place of? Okay, so I use it with patch persist. So all of these guys here have patch persist turned on so that I have something smooth if I'm switching between local rack spaces. But in the global rack space, I have the setup a little bit different. So here, it's going to the wiring. So this piano on off block is a MIDI filter, and this is in Gig Performer. This is not a third-party plugin. And somewhere in here, there is a filter for note on and note off messages. which I guess I found somehow. But what I've got going on is if we flip over to this other panel and I click here, here's the plugin is piano on off because I renamed it, but really this is a MIDI filter, and you can search parameter names from here. So I've chosen note off, note on rather. So what that does is it blocks the note on, right? So when I have this here, you'll see it says blocked. So I'm hitting my key, which I realize you can't see, but nothing's coming through. And when this is on, I have my sound, and that just is going to continue to linger. But when I lift the key, that instrument is still going to receive the note off message, right? So your sound is going to cut off as soon as you lift it because the note on went through, and then you stopped it from getting more notes. But when you lift your hand, the note off button will still go through to the other one. I hope that makes sense, but pretty easy. There are other ways to do this, right? Gig Performer allows you to bypass plugins or whatever, but for me, this has been more functional. Okay. What instrument to use for the piano if the song is based on piano sound and you need a full and detailed one? So I love the Grandeur piano. That is, I think, my favorite piano that I use. If I need something that is more detailed than that, I guess I would just go out and find it. I know that Piano Tech makes some great pianos, but I think the question is it really just depends on what you're looking for, right? Like sometimes you would like go for a more fake sounding piano sound for a certain song, or if you're looking for something that's a particular character, you would just have to kind of hunt down the plugin that works for you. How'd you get the global rack space into your regular rack space area? There's a button for this at the bottom, so you can open and close this. I usually do play with it open, but yeah, once you've got your global rack space set up, you can either open it or close it depending on what works best for you. Do you have a strategy to set levels for patches so that levels are consistent during the set? Yes. Trial and error. I know that maybe sounds crazy, but when you play through your set before you go, adjust the volume of your patch. And I kind of prefer to do that through the actual sound itself. So I don't see what this is at here. Okay, so this E piano is at -6. And I think it's a decent volume. So this would be just E piano. So I think that sits well. And then with the piano, I think it kind of works together for a layer. So part of it is like, yeah, just adjust it when you're trying it out. And then the other thing that's nice too is, once you built something that you liked, well, then you just leave it there. And if you need to access it later, it's going to be the right volume. Yeah, and then it'll be the right volume. So I guess my strategy is just kind of listen to it and use my ears and adjust the volume within the plugin itself. And then for all of the other level stuff, it's all done through the same fader on my controller. So I don't have to worry so much about, I don't have to worry so much about like if I alter the level of one patch, but not another patch. Yeah. So that's that. That's kind of how I do all of that stuff. I'll hold here for a moment. I think that may be it for questions. If you do have another one, feel free to send it in, or if I've missed one, I think I covered this. How is the piano processed? Okay. Fantastic, friends. Well, thank you so much for being here. Next week, we have Igor Paspalj coming in, who is 2020 Electric Guitarist of the Year for Guitar World magazine. And he's going to show us how he is using Gig Performer for his stuff. He's an insane player. If you have not checked out what he's doing, just type his name into YouTube and watch what he's doing. He's done some videos for us, kind of explaining some guitar specific things. So you won't want to miss that. And then the following week after that, we have Joe Luca coming on from the Yes cover band Awaken, which is going to be amazing. Really interesting stuff going on just in the music of Yes in general, but kind of watching how he's using Gig Performer for that will be great. Thank you all so much for being here. We will see you same time next week for Backstage with Gig Performer. We'll have Igor Paspalj on, and we'll see you then.